What are the challenges of hosting so many players in these first couple weekends? Do you guys see it as a good thing, or is there some challenges that come with that, with trying to pay attention to everyone who's going to be on campus and making everybody feel like they belong there?
No, I think it's a great problem to have. Just I think the excitement of all these kids. It's been almost 2 years since anyone's been able to visit. So the kids are excited. The staff's excited to finally, see these people up front rather than these constant Zooms. The good thing is we're not in season right now, so it's all hands on deck in the building, and which it will be. And it's just my job and Erin's job just to be as organized as possible for when they get on campus with so many kids, that we have a great plan and envision anything that could possibly go wrong and be prepared for it.
Next up, we'll go to Patrick Murphy with 24/7 Sports. Patrick?
Hey, Mark. Just kind of take us through how your role changed the last year, without people. What were the biggest challenges? Behind the scenes a little bit, how did you have to handle this situation maybe differently than you would on a normal year?
Well, probably added a couple of years back onto my life with just without all the craziness of campus visits. But it was great in that it provided me more time to do scouting reports during our fall season, just to help the coaches. So I spent a lot of time scouting our opponents, which is good because now with this one-time transfer rule, now I have notes on every team we played, and I would take notes on other players. So if they now enter the portal, at least I've graded guys and got a head start that way. But obviously, when you're constantly doing Zoom, you're kind of limited on what you creatively can come up with. So I think I told you guys this analogy before, but the Brian Hart line, it's cool to when you see the commercial of the nice flashy car, but you don't really know until you test drive it. How cool it really is. So that's what we're about to do. These kids are about to test drive the car finally, after seeing the commercial for so many months.
Next up, Dan Hope with 11 Warriors. Dan?
Hey, Erin, just wanted to ask you, as you're starting this new role, what's it been like for you to kind of come in as your first year on the job and to be now coming in at such a crazy time in recruiting?
Working at the University of Kansas really afforded me the ability to enhance my skills and be prepared to come to Ohio State. And with about 14 months-ish not having kids on campus, we're doing something a little bit different where it's almost like a hybrid, like utilizing Zoom and having the kids back on campus. So that transition really helps us to ease back into it. And honestly, I'm just super excited to get everyone back on campus, like working in this field and being with these prospects and getting to know them. It's just an exciting opportunity to have them finally back and transition back to the normal times.
And what brought you to Ohio State, and kind of what do you think that you're going to bring to this recruiting department?
Honestly, the people and the vision and the family atmosphere that Coach Day and Mark Pantoni really showed me is what brought me to Ohio State. The challenge of having these kids come back on campus in such a high volume brought me to Ohio State. And obviously we didn't know at the time how many kids we were going to have, but we knew that it was going to open back up one day. So, that's what really brought me to Ohio State. And I think my personality, my organizational skills, my experience is what is going to allow me to help elevate Ohio State in the recruiting aspect.
Thank you.
Let's go to Kevin Noon with Rivals / Buckeye Grove. Kevin.
Thanks, Jerry. For Mark, you're going to have most of your commits coming in the first weekend. And obviously that's going to be good for the camaraderie. A lot of these guys have not had the opportunity to meet each other in person. Is it better to have them all coming in at once, or is there part of you that wishes that you could spread them across the weekends just so you would always have a couple of guys that were obviously very pro Ohio State after committing? Because certainly it's not going to stop maybe some of the local guys from coming in unofficially, but is it better to have them all in at once, or if you had your way of picking it, to spread them out?
Yeah, we discussed that as a staff, and we just felt like since they've been so loyal to us, we wanted them to get here that first weekend, just because they deserve it. They deserve to all be here together, get to know each other. They are our best recruiters, them along with our current players. So I know some of the local guys, I'm sure will come back other weekends and help, but no, it was our decision to get them all here that first weekend if they could.
Next up, Jeremy Birmingham, Letterman Row. Jeremy.
Mark, a couple things. How many people are you actually expecting on campus in June? And with the 6 set one-day camps and is the rest of June basically just an open house where kids can stop in and do unofficial visits? And if that's so, what is the guidance on their ability to work out or get evaluated during those unofficials as opposed to the camps?
Yeah, I'll let Erin answer your first question here in a second, just because she's keeping the calendar and the numbers. But just as far as the 2022s, they can come work out for 1 hour with one coach. So there's no wide receivers running routes together. There's no one-on-ones. It's just simply a one-on-one workout. And then with camps, that'll be mostly for the 23s and 24s, just to get that early evaluation on them. But every day is going to be crazy. There's not going to be any days off. Erin can talk now about how the total numbers are looking.
Yeah, for official visits, we have approximately 51 approved right now. And then for unofficial visits, it is kind of like an open door. If they come to camp and they want an unofficial visit, they can have that. If they're coming to see their coaches and get a tour, campus tour, they can do that as well. So I don't want to give you a small ballpark number or a large ballpark number, but right now on my calendar, it's about 150 to 200 kids.
And there is no ability for kids who are on official visits to do the hour workout?
No, they cannot.
Okay.
Next up, let's go to Stephen Means with Cleveland.com. Stephen?
Mark, just given what the last year has been like, and we're talking about the number of commitments you guys have right now, do you feel like you guys are in a spot that you wanted to be in as far as the number of players who are in the class right now, the positions they're at? You just feel like headed into this June, now that things are opening back up, you're where you want to be as a class right now?
Yeah, I think we're very content with where we're at. I'm always of the philosophy you don't want to fill up too early, just because you want to use the summer for the camp evals. There's going to be new kids that pop up, and then going into the fall with the development of these guys, their senior film guys always develop and get better. This last year Zen was a guy that wasn't on our radar, and then he has a great senior film, and he ends up becoming a Buckeye. So it's always good that we feel good about the number we're at, and then here in these next few months, we expect to get a few more after some more eval.
Next up, Joey Kaufman with the Dispatch. Joey?
Mark, just to give people, I guess, some context, but how much more would 51 official visitors be compared to like 2019 or past years? How much more is that, or is that similar to what's been in past Junes?
It's obviously for 1 month, it's very overwhelming. So our max every year is usually 62 with a 6 rollover. We probably in a normal year probably get in the high 40s to low 50s. So this is pretty extraordinary, but not unexpected either.
Next up, Tony Girdman with Buckeye Scoop. Tony?
Mark, you've put together a lot of recruiting classes at Ohio State and Florida. I'm wondering, is this the biggest recruiting month you've ever experienced coming up? And what's it like preparing for? Are you in a game week mode? Is it nerves? Is it like getting ready for the first day at a new job? What's it been like for you?
Yeah, it's exciting, but we know what's coming, and is we just have to be very organized. And Erin's been a rock star, coming in right away, and she's been great, and we haven't lost a step with her. So Erin and I are just working closely together, and we're just trying to take it day by day right now. Obviously, that first weekend we have a lot, but starting next Tuesday, it's on, and we just got to go day by day, and just just win that day, and then have a great plan prepared for that weekend. So it's all hands on deck, and we're going to do everything we can to just make it as smooth as possible. But like I said, it is by far in my career it's going to be a rough one. And the month of July, that phone's probably going to be turned off and no one's going to track me down. So,
Thank you.
Next up, Austin Ward with Letterman Row. Austin.
Mark, I know in some ways you guys have been preparing for name, image, and likeness for a long time with Brand U and stuff like that. Now that there may be some legislation close for these guys, how much is that impacting recruiting and what you guys are trying to pitch now?
Yeah, so Coach Day is, along with Gene, have been awesome in just getting prepared. And just the next step is educating. It's been educating our staff and our players. And the place like Ohio State, we talked about it the other day, the brand of that Block O nationally, the brand of Ohio State football, the city of Columbus, and then our fan base, which is on another level. We feel very excited about the opportunities for our players, and we're going to definitely discuss it with all the recruits these next few weeks. And we think it's a great selling point for them. We have to embrace it. We know it's coming down the tracks, and we're going to be well prepared for it.
Next up, Bill Rabinowitz with the Columbus Dispatch. Bill.
Hi, Mark. You mentioned the transfer portal and how you've taken a bigger role in that, especially with recruiting kind of being put on pause to some degree in certain ways. How much has that changed your job, and how big a part of your job has that become, looking at the transfer portal and analyzing those guys?
Yeah, it's definitely become bigger. Probably spending a few hours a day now watching guys as they enter the portal. Just there's always looking for, if there's someone who can help the roster, we'll bring them in. So whether it's FBS, FCS, we're just trying to make sure. So yeah, probably a couple hours every single day now I'm spending on watching college film rather than high school film. So it's been a transition.
Yeah, and in terms of that, I mean, you're used to watching high school kids. Do you evaluate college kids differently?
They're just a little bit more developed, but the skill set wise, you're still looking at the same critical factors and everything, and how productive were they for their team. Obviously, a guy who was a backup at the school they left and didn't have much film, probably not going to be a guy for us. So we're looking at guys who've had success at their old school and maybe be able to help us, like Jonah and Trey and Justin were home runs for us.
Right. Thanks, Mark.
Next up, Nathan Baird with Cleveland.com. Nathan?
Hey, Erin, I know that you've only been there for a couple of months, but I'm curious what you've seen in that time that has given you some insight into why this Ohio State recruiting machine has been so successful. Anything that you see that they do differently or do better, and what has sort of just struck you about how they go about this and has impressed you?
That's a great question. I would say that Ohio State is very all the coaches are involved with every recruit. So it's not just the position coach, it could be the area coach as well as another coach that's also involved in recruiting a kid or building that relationship. We focus heavy on the families as well, which I think is very, I'm not going to say unique, but it's very different from what I'm used to. And I think, Coach Day, he says, tough love, and you're going to fight to be the best version of yourself. And, when we talk to these parents, it is that is the atmosphere that Ohio State has. And so we're actually, it's not a pitch, it's what the atmosphere is and what they're going to walk into. And I think that's the difference between other universities that I've been to, is what we're telling these kids is what they're going to get.
Move on to Mark Givler with Buckeye Scoop. Mark?
Hey, Mark, just curious, are you seeing an extra, or are you feeling an added importance to these visits because you're not getting the unofficial visit you might normally get leading up to the official? So you've had this kind of chaotic recruiting process here the last 12 to 18 months. So is that kind of upping the ante here a little bit? Because with some of these kids from from Texas or California or something, it's a one and done opportunity for you.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I've brought it up to our coaches, it's kind of like we're putting all our chips in right now in the month of June, because a lot of these guys, we may never get back before December signing period. So that's a long time to go. And it's that impression may lose a lot of its luster. And a lot of the top guys we're going after right now, these next 4 weeks, they're going to be taking visits every weekend. And so, for a top guy who may be visiting this first weekend and then going on 3 more trips after, is that feeling of Ohio State still going to last? Because obviously the red carpet's going to be rolled out everywhere. So we just have to do a great job. And then after the visit, we just have to do a great job staying in touch. And, hopefully for some of these kids, I think the attraction of coming unofficially for a game will be there. So hopefully we can make that work in a lot of these cases.
Just want to let everyone know, anyone who's come on late, we are recording this, and so if anyone missed any portion of this, shoot me an email afterwards, and I'll send you a link, and you can download this. We're going to move on to Joseph Hastings with Rivals.com, Buckeye Grove. Joseph?
Hey, Mark, I just wanted to ask, with it being well over a year since you were able to host prospects on campus, how important was it for you all, the staff, to make a splash that first weekend and make a strong first impression on some of those top targets that you'll be welcoming into campus?
Yeah, what we hoped is just to set the bar. So when these kids go to other schools, it's like they know what Ohio State was, and this is going to be hard we want them to think this is going to be really hard to top. And, Coach Day has been very involved and with a lot of input, which is awesome. And we have an outstanding plan for the first weekend. And we think, hopefully, cross our fingers, we have some decent weather. And thank goodness it's not this weekend with, 52 tomorrow. So we've got a great plan. We're just going to execute it the best we can. And we expect nothing but the best. So we're excited.
Thank you.
Next up, Bill Landis with The Athletic. Bill?
Hi, Mark. I'm wondering how knowing that this was coming, the fact that things are going to open back up, might have impacted how you all kind of stacked your prospect board, and whether or not there are more guys there now that maybe there typically would be going into a June, and how open you are to the idea that that board can be really shaken up depending on what you see in the next month.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be fluid with these kids making a lot of these visits now. So you're condensing a 1 or 2 year process now into 1 month for some of these kids. So yes, the board is much bigger than what it typically would be. Just because there's so many unknowns, I think, with never seeing these kids in person physically, or knowing what their personality is other than, on Zoom. So I think whenever a kid visits our campus, it's almost like a job interview for them. So we'll see how they do around us, and some will be very impressionable. Some we may lower because it's just not great interaction or not what we thought. So it's going to be an exciting and crazy month, but it definitely will help us shape the board going into the fall.
And on the idea of these guys being impressionable, like they're going to be on college campuses for the first time in 2 years, and I don't know, maybe the first thing they see they're going to be wowed by, and maybe they'll want to commit right away, right? Because I think they're excited to be on campus, just like you guys are excited to host them. Like, how do you kind of manage that? Not, I don't know, letting that excitement kind of roll over into kids making decisions quicker than maybe they should.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's a good problem for us, but no, it's just one of those things where for any commit, we just explain that commitment is final. We don't want it to be just a holding place and just where you're going to go visit other schools afterwards. So it's just good communication with the family and the kid and understand what that means. And Coach Day does a great job with that. So
move on to Tom Van Aaron with ESPN. Tom?
Hey, Mark. I was curious. I know this obviously this class is important, the 2022 kids, but the time that you've lost, you can't really get that back. How do you balance this class with trying to catch up with the 2023 class and the underclassmen and make sure you don't lose that time with them as well? Is there a bigger emphasis on the underclassmen than you'd usually have?
Well, what we've tried to encourage is trying to get the 2023s on campus during the week rather than on the weekends with the official visit, just so, like you said, it's just we don't lose focus and lose the attention on them as well. So a lot of those kids are going to come during the week, come for camps to where we'll have a great plan for them and get great evaluations and show them a great visit. Erin, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that as well.
Oh, that was great.
All right, I think everyone whose hands had been raised, we've got to. So we're gonna open up this rock concert to the festival seating portion. So just if anyone else has a question, just go ahead and fire away, and I'll do the best to moderate here. So if you have another question, go ahead and please ask.
I'll ask if nobody else wants to jump in. Mark, how much more difficult has evaluating players been, considering that so many players didn't play last year? So much of the normal evaluation process you couldn't have.
Most of them did play. It was actually kind of cool in a way because like North Carolina, California, they didn't play until the spring. So in a way, it did spread things out to where in the fall didn't have to watch the same volume of games because it carried over to the spring, and it was kind of cool in the way that it gave us something to do in the spring of watching fresh film. So that was kind of exciting as well. But evaluation process has still been the same. Most of the kids did play. There's only a few that did not, which makes it really hard. If there's no film on a guy, especially like sophomores in high school, if they don't have any sophomore film, and you see them getting all these offers, it's kind of crazy. But we just do things our way, try to ignore the noise and social media and everything else.
Mark, talking about social media and everything else, you guys are entering this name, image, likeness era. You've replaced Tori with Erin, but now you have to replace Zach and Chris and a couple other pieces that are key pieces of not just the recruiting department, but the entire football program. How are you gearing towards that? And what is the plan, I guess, for you guys to replace those pieces that are very key for you that maybe aren't publicly, known commodities?
Yeah, so Zach and Chris were both tremendous. They were elite at what they did. We've actually just replaced them. Addison Skaggs is replacing Zach. She's coming in from Baylor. She was highly recommended by Matt Rule. And as soon as we met with her on Zoom, she blew us away, and she blew Coach Day away. She's only 24 years old. She's very young, but she's got great leadership and she's got great vision. And then we just hired CJ Campbell to replace Chris. Addison started yesterday. That was her first day. Chris is moving in this weekend. CJ is coming from Nebraska. So we're excited what they're going to bring. They understand how phenomenal Zach and Chris were at their jobs, but they're hungry. They're young. They're excited. And we still have Juan Reyes and Corey Wonderly, and we're going to hire one more still for the creative team. So hopefully next week going forward, we're back to normal, and we'll get things cranking back on social media.
Mark, as far as the one-time transfer rule is concerned, how much does that impact how you guys approach a class in the sense of, will you guys take less people in the name of maybe leaving some room open for guys that you feel like might be in the transfer portal and stuff like that?
No, we'll still go about as business as is, because there's just natural attrition every year. There's always guys, something happens you never expect. Maybe one spot, maybe two, but we're not going to try to just purposely leave spots just because there's always going to be that natural attrition.
Hey, Erin, can you were asked about coming to Ohio State, but what brought you into or gave you interest in the recruiting field in general? Why did you choose this path?
I received my master's at LSU, and I was granted the opportunity to work for that football program. And I actually started in football operations, and I liked the operations side. But what attracted me to recruiting was building the relationships and seeing these young student athletes progress in their career as I'm with these programs.
Can I ask
Mark, I wanted to ask, what's it like, for some of these guys that are, maybe in the 2022 class who you're still evaluating, if they're coming in, for a camp and they've only got one opportunity to impress you guys, just kind of how do you guys look at that in terms of, not having as many opportunities to evaluate a guy in person as you would in a normal recruiting cycle?
Yeah, it's definitely tough. I think at the end of the day, the film it always holds the biggest amount of weight. coming to camp and working out kind of either affirms or shows you something that the film doesn't show. So again, it's just another piece of the evaluation toolbox, I guess. But we'll definitely, we're trying to get as many as we can, just because guys, their bodies develop. And so especially with linemen, there may be kids who played at 255 pounds that are now 285, 290 going into their senior year. So that will definitely play a piece of it.
For Mark or Erin or both of you, the presentations that you're going to be making to recruits, if this was a pie chart, how much of that pie chart would be NIL right now?
You go ahead.
I would say, honestly, with NIL, and we're going pie chart, I'm going to say the presentation's about 30%, but the natural conversations that happen, I think it's going to take over a lot of the chunk of what is talked about, because that's what these kids are really interested in. They're interested in their playing time, they're interested in building a relationship with the head coach, but there is that money aspect. And so to me, if you're asking personally, presentation and conversation wise, it's going to be about 50%.
Thank you.
How much do you want it to be? I mean, in an ideal world, how big of a pie piece would that be, Mark? I mean, you guys are building relationships, as you said. I mean, how much of it do you want to be about NIL, and how much of it would you prefer to be about the real important parts of relationship building because of the transfer portal, because all these other things that are going to be exploited if relationships are put to the back?
I think it depends on each kid, and that's knowing the kid and their families. Again, I think it's something we have to embrace. Other schools are going to be pitching it, but I don't think there's only a handful of other schools that even have the platform to compete with us on everything, on their whole branding process. So it's definitely something that we feel strongly about, so we might as well use it to our advantage. But if a kid and a family, we're not going to overwhelm them with it. We'll present information. If they have follow-up questions and they seem like it's really important to them, then we'll definitely use it more.
Gene said last week that he was worried about the competitive balance actually growing, or the competitive gap actually growing between schools like Ohio State and some of the other lower ranking Power 5 schools. Do you guys see that as something that is definitely going to be to your advantage?
I personally think it's hard to predict, just so many unknowns right now of what's going to happen, but we'll just focus on us and do what we got to do.
I'm going to chime in. I'm going to say you guys are a part of our advantage. The media, the core media that covers this program is as large as anywhere in the country. And you all know that, coupled with the corporate industry that we have here in Columbus, Ohio, and the social media presence and clout that this program has and commands. It all fits into the package that's going to enable Ohio State and our student athletes to really to prosper in this NIL world.
Jerry, that's why you have to have Ryan and every coach available at all times for us.
Yeah, exactly, and we're doing our best for that, and every player too. So that's great, and plus the Open Doors platform. When you guys see the things that's going to be able to do for our student athletes, again, just another advantage there. Any other questions for Mark and Erin?
Yeah,
I had one more, Jerry.
Sure.
Mark, I came on a few minutes late, so if you address this, I apologize. But you mentioned these June visits. It might be the last time you get some of these kids on campus before December. How much does this change either the calendar or what you present or what the visit actually looks like? Are you going to condense it into a bigger presentation? Are you going to try to spread visits out with certain prospects? How does it change this month for you guys?
It doesn't change anything. It's just we have to hit a home run while we have them here, because we're not sure if it's going to be the one and only time we have. So we just have to assume that it is and just hit it out of the park with them and just show all the facts why we think this place is the best place for them.
Mark, when you talked earlier about being able to roll out the red carpet because it's a June visit rather than a game day visit, do you guys kind of prefer for those guys to come in the summer rather than game days? Because there's obviously nothing like game days, but at the same time, you guys have a little bit more time to get to know these guys on a personal level and in person. and really spend time with them. So what are your thoughts on some of these guys coming in June rather than waiting till these game day visits?
My philosophy personally is the more time the coaches and players can spend around the prospects, the better. Game day visits are so hectic with these kids playing on Friday night, getting home late, getting the first flight out Saturday morning, getting here. Coaches are worried about preparing for the game, worried about their players. And then after coaches not seeing their families for the entire week because of game planning, is just very limited on the amount of time. You just don't have time with these kids. And then Sunday, they're getting ready for the next game. So to me, the more time the coaches can spend around these kids, not leave their side, and really develop that relationship, right? Either if it's during the summer or after the season, I think we've had the most success in those instances. If these kids are going for game visits, they're probably going a lot of these schools they're visiting have really impressive home games because they're going to pick the biggest games to go see. So with all being equal, the game day experience, I don't think trumps the relationship with our players and coaches.
Hey, for either Mark or Erin, I'm just wondering with recruiting being this way, being virtual for so long, are there a little bit of nerves that come with the excitement June 1's right around the corner. We've been doing this away for such a long time. Do you almost have to brush up on the people skills? I mean, I know you guys have seen coworkers and everything, but doing it with the ones you're trying to recruit now.
As Mark mentioned before, Coach Day is heavily involved and he wants to visit a certain way, which I think is great. And because we've been out of recruiting, we've done staff activities where it's okay, we're going to make sure everyone knows, the tour of the Woody. And especially for someone like me who just started, and as Mark mentioned, we have new creative staff too. And having a year outside of recruiting, it's where are things located on campus? What are the pinpoints? The Thompson Library, the top, you can see the whole campus. So these are fun facts for our staff to know. So we have been doing kind of staff training, if you will, which is not something we would have done in the past. But I think it's really great that we're doing that and we're kind of brushing up. And there is an excitement and a little bit of I'm not going to say nerves, but as Mark said, we win the day. There's a lot of kids coming in and we're going to take it day by day. And we are Ohio State. We know what we can provide these kids. So at the end, we just have to blow them away with what we can offer.
Mark, I know that it's important to Ryan to have the opportunity to get to watch, quarterbacks in person. So is that an area of emphasis here for these, camps coming up to have an opportunity to watch some of the underclassmen quarterbacks in person?
Yeah, that's going to be huge. We've got a lot of guys coming in for camp, not just quarterback, but in every position. And just the more you can see them in person and work out, especially I think for a quarterback, it's just so important to see the ball come out of their hand live. And so Corey's done a great job of getting a large number of the 2023 kids up here in the next few weeks. So that will provide us an opportunity to get a head start and help our evaluations for sure.
Mark, wanted to ask, but with all these June visitors, are there any COVID protocol stuff that you guys have to do with them? Or just the way you guys meet or size of gathered groups or smaller groups or
so we're allowed to, the camps we're allowed to do in pods of 25. We don't have to test, but we will follow all university protocols.
Questions for Mark or both. I just wanted to know kind of over these past 14 months, what are some of the new recruiting techniques that you all have had to implement that you're hoping that you will take with you post dead period and when things get back to normal?
You can go ahead, Erin.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to ask you to repeat that. My thing kept going in and out. So can you repeat that? I'm sorry. You're
all good. I was just wondering over these past 14 months, what are some of the new recruiting techniques that you've had to implement that you haven't done before that you're hoping will take with you past the dead period and when things get back to normal?
I think honestly with Zoom, you've had to brush up on, it's not that in-person, face-to-face. It's learning to communicate in a different way, right? So that skills and those transferable skills of doing that, I think we'll take with us. And as I mentioned before, like maybe as we start in recruiting and we have some kids that are in California, we can do a lot of things virtually so that when they get on campus, they're a little bit more familiar. They're meeting the professors directly. They're getting in with the head coach quicker. We're able to show them campus, and they kind of have a land point because we've done it on Zoom. So taking those things that we've had to do during this pandemic time and taking those skills and transferring them to when they are on campus.
Thank you.
Mark, I was wondering, just with being able to watch the 2021 commits, the ones that were here in the spring, with everything being so weird in the last year, some of them having not played, were you able to kind of witness what the culture of your program is like, bringing guys in and getting them up to speed so quickly?
Yeah, it created a little more excitement, I think. Trey Henderson obviously didn't have a senior year. Evan Pryor didn't have a senior year. So there was a little bit of excitement finally when they got here to see them practice. And as a group, this may be one of the most mature and best groups we've ever had. 15 or 16 of them. They came in day one, put their heads down and went to work. And again, that speaks to the culture. That speaks about the older guys, the vets, taking these young guys in and helping them learn the ropes. And so it's been exciting, and we're very excited about their future as well.
Time for maybe one more question. Anybody have one last question?
Yeah, Mark, you're talking about the 2022 and 23 class so much, but the reality of the situation is the 2021 class still isn't wrapped up entirely. How important is it to finish June, to finish the 2021 class with a big bang, I guess?
Like I mentioned before, we're obviously always looking for if there's any high school seniors still out there, as well as transfers. And so in both cases, if there's one that will help the roster, we'll definitely bring them in on visits and definitely explore every opportunity we have for sure.
It's National Burger Day. Mark, Erin, it's Memorial Day weekend. It's National Hamburger Day. What goes on the burger this weekend?
I'm a plain Jane eater, so mine's just cheese and bacon. No bun.
You can throw whatever on there. I'll eat it.